Hey everyone, welcome back. And this is going to be the lab section where we are going to create site-to-site VPN tunnel. And I'm going to explain you the topology which I'm going to have. So this is going to be our network topology. On the Azure side, I have one VNet with the range 10.0.0.0/16, and I'm going to carve out two subnets. One, I'm going to use it for gateway subnet, where this VPN gateway will reside, and another subnet which is going to be the VNet subnet 10.0.2.0/24, and I'm going to host one VM. It can be Linux, it can be Windows, and that's just to test the connectivity over the tunnel. This gateway subnet, you can choose minimum up to /29. However, I'm having it for the lab purpose, so /24 is okay. Once this VNet will host a VPN gateway, there will be a public IP which will get assigned to your VPN gateway, and same time a private IP also get assigned, and that is going to be the, if it is /24, that's going to be .4. So .4 here, .4 here from this range, and on the other side, which I call it site A on-prem, this is also something hosted on Azure. So I'm running a VM, and on top of that VM, I'm running GNS3, and on GNS3, I'm going to run IOSV with the 15.x. And once this VM is up and running, you're going to get one public IP address assigned. And when you configure this IOSV, so for example, if this is the gigabit 0/0 interface, that is going to connect to the NAT object within the GNS3, and once you connect this NAT object, this interface will be configured for DSCP, and small tweaks which you need to do. The MAC address which is configured on the NIC here, that has to be shifted over gigabit 0/0. And why we are going to shift it? So when you are connecting a virtual router to NAT device, it is recommended to change the MAC address on the router interface to the physical NIC of your computer. And this is done to ensure that the NAT device can properly map the virtual router IP address to your physical NIC MAC address, allowing that virtual router to access the internet or other devices on the network. I will be creating all my resources from Terraform. However, I'm going to explain you the main component, what we are going to use. So the main component is going to be the virtual network gateway. And when you create the network gateway, you need to keep a couple of parameters in your mind. The gateway type is going to be the VPN. That's the major thing because we are talking about site to site. The another type is express route, which we are not going to use. And make sure your VPN type is route based, because going forward, I'm going to run BGP on top of the tunnel, what I going to create. Then the SKU, we are going to use VPN Gateway 1 because that is something which is going to support your BGP. You can go for the basic one also, but BGP support won't be there. Then the virtual network, where this is going to reside. So we will create a virtual network as well. And once you create that, you are going to get the public IP address assigned to this gateway. Then you can also enable active mode, which I'm not going to do it. So we will disable it as of now. And once that is disabled, you're not going to have this second public IP address. So if I disable it, that field is gone. We will configuring BGP, but not here in this lab. We will enable the BGP later on. Even that is disabled here. And then that is it. The second main component is going to be the local network gateway. And in this local network gateway, what exactly this is talking about the remote. Though it tells local, but this is all remote. So when you create a local gateway, you need to define the public IP address on your on-prem router, which is going to be this field, and then you need to define what is going to be the encryption domain. That means the LAN subnet. Name, etc. You can define its choice up to you. And these are going to be the two components. And then once your gateway is created, then you need to create a connection basically. And that connection means you can create multiple connections if you have multiple sites. Now I'm going to create all the resources from Terraform and I'm going to explain you the script, how it looks like. Let's take a look on Terraform script. So everything start as usual with your provider, and in this case, this is going to be the Azure RM. Then you are going to have one resource group, and this resource group will have a name and the location tagged. Then I'm going to have a VPN net, which is going to be the main VNet which we're going to create. And this VNet will have a range of 10.0.0.0/16. Then you need to carve two subnets. My first subnet where this VPN gateway resides will be associated with 10.0.1.0/24. One thing you need to keep in mind, this is having a special name, so make sure your name is gateway subnet. Then for connectivity testing purpose, I'm going to have another VNet subnet that is going to be the VNet 1, and it is also called from the main VNet, which is VPN net. And this subnet will have 10.0.2.0/24. After that, you are going to have a public IP address, and this public IP address is allocated dynamically, and that will be attached to your VNet gateway. When you create a VNet gateway, it is going to be the type VPN, type is going to be route based, and the SKU I'm going to use is a VPN gateway 1. And then this public IP address will be associated here. This gateway will have a private IP as well, and that is also dynamic, and it comes from the VPN subnet. And the VPN subnet you can see is 10.0.1.0. Then you are going to have the local network gateway. The name refers local, but it is all about remote network. This is going to be the peer IP, and then you are going to have a subnet which is a LAN range of remote network 192.168.10.0. Now we need to add a VPN connection, and when you add a VPN connection, the type is going to be the IPsec, and this is going to be the shared key. One more public IP I'm going to add on the NIC, and this NIC will be associated to the virtual machine which we are going to create for the testing purpose. So once you add the NIC here, it is going to have OS and then the source image. I'm going to run Ubuntu with the latest version, and this VM will have the username, and you need to have the admin password set. And that is it. And now I'm going to run this script to create all my resources. I'm going to initialize Terraform. Sorry for the typo. Now initialization is done. Now let's look at, or I'm going to directly apply it. Since in this lab we are going to create the VPN gateway, and VPN gateway creation takes minimum 45 minutes. So once this script starts, I'm going to pause this video and come back. If you want to review this plan, you can see it here. these are exactly the same resources what we are trying to add. And everywhere is green. So it's not going to delete anything, but it is going to add your virtual machine. Then you are going to have the local gateway, interface NIC, public IP address, resource, subnet, and this is your VPN gateway, IP configuration, and finally it is going to create the connections. So let's press yes. So it is going to create 11 resources. 0 to change, 0 to destroy. That means everything is good. Now it has started creating the resources. Now I'm going to pause it and come back once this is completed. All my resources have been provisioned and there was a small error. The field disable password authentication, it was set to true, which I made it false. And that was the last resource which it added. Now it's time to verify all the resources what we have created from Azure console. Now let's verify those resources. So we will go to the resource group, and the resource group what we have created is going to be my VPN RG, and under that you can see these many resources were created. So let's verify those resources one by one. My local gateway, And in my local gateway, you can see this was a remote LAN subnet, and this is the public IP address, what we have mentioned. Same thing you can see here as well. And if you go to the connection, it is telling you there was a one connection it tried to create, which is in not connected state. Now let's go back and take a look on our VPN gateway. So in the gateway, this is up and running. And let's take a look on the configuration. This is the SKU type which we have chosen. Active is disabled, and the BGP is also disabled. Under the connection, it is the same connection what we were saying from local gateway. It is not connected. We can see it from here as well. Now, property, we don't need to. I guess that is it, what we can verify from here. And now we need to work on setting up. However, you can see the public IP address which got assigned to this network is 4.246.57.129. Now we need to work on other side, which is going to be the GNS3 setup, and let's try to configure that as well. Now let's configure the GNS3 site. So I'm going to use iOS V, and this will be connected to NAT object. Let's choose interface, which is the first interface, and start this router. Once this is started, we can also mention this. Let's go to the console. It shouldn't take longer. Now verify how many interfaces we have. Show IP interface brave. We have 4 interfaces and we need to configure the first one. No shut. IP address is going to be the DSCP. And now let's verify what is the IP address getting assigned. Okay, here we can see it. The IP address got assigned is 82. A small change, what we need to do, we need to change the MAC address as well. So let's change the MAC address. Let me copy the MAC address. You need to change the format. And that is it. So this MAC address belongs to the physical network interface card. And now we can go to our console, and from there I'm going to download a sample configuration which we are going to apply here. This is the virtual network gateway what we have created. So let's click on that. Go to the connections and we'll click on the connection. And from here you can download the sample configuration. So let's click on the download configuration. You need to choose what is going to be the remote device. So I'm going to choose this is going to be Cisco in my case. and the OS is going to be 15x. And let's hit the download configuration. This is the sample configuration which we downloaded, and after doing a small modification, we will paste this as it is. So these are the parameters what you can see here, but let's just focus on the configuration side. This is going to be your IQ2 configuration, and wherever you see a local IP address, though it's a public IP address which we are using, but we need to change it to the one which is actually configured on our interface since we are using the NAT. So I will make it 198.122.82. That is the IP address which got allocated to interface gigabit 0/0. This is local, and there's one more local IP address here. This is the peer IP address which is on Azure site. And now we see this is going to be the same pre-shared key which we configured earlier. So now let's do copy paste to the whole configuration. This is your encryption, and it's time to create your virtual tunnel interface. This is going to be the APIPA IP address which we are going to use. A small tweak which we need to do. I need to change the tunnel source to the interface. And rest of the configuration should be as it is. We need to configure the loopback also, because that is where you are going to source this information from. And the loopback will be coming from this IP address. And let's make it 1. It was /24. No shut. And the last thing we need to do is to put a route towards tunnel so that resources can reach out to not under the interface. And that is it. At this moment, we should be able to ping our remote IP address. So the resources what we had 10.0.2.4 source loopback. And the reason it was not working here, I made a small mistake. While doing the configuration, I pasted the source IP address once again. I corrected that, and this is going to be the source interface, which is going to be the physical interface here. Once you correct it, I'm able to ping resources from this router with the source loop back to the virtual machine what we host on a VNet on Azure site. So this side of connectivity, it is done. Let's verify few commands. And we can see the number of packet got encrypted and decrypted here. Let's verify on the Azure site how the connection status looks like. Under virtual network gateway, we can go to the connections and the connection status is now connected. And that is expected also. And the reason behind we were able to ping a virtual machine which is hosted on Azure from that router. Now let's take a look on a routing table on that particular VM. So we will go to the virtual machine and that virtual machine is my VM. And in my VM, I'm going to go to the networking and in networking, network interface, and then we are going to see effective routes. And here we can see there is a route which got added with the connection what we made is going to be the virtual network. And this is a address prefix. This is going to be the remote LAN subnet. And it is telling you the next hop is virtual network gateway. And the next hop is 4.246.57.192. That is a public IP address belongs to network gateway. That is it for this lab, and in the next lab we are going to enable BGP on top of this tunnel and see how that looks like.